Let and const are two relatively new features in JavaScript. Another cool new feature are arrow functions. We can rewrite this function as an arrow function by, first of all, creating a new variable or constant. Since I'll never set a new value, I'll use a constant. And I'll give that the name of my function, so summarize user. The value which I then assign after the equal sign is a function. Now, we could already have done it in the past with this syntax. This is another way of defining a function. The part on the right side is a so-called anonymous function, because we don't set up a name after function, but we make it a named function implicitly by storing the anonymous function in that named constant. So we can always call that constant, which holds a function as a value, and we call the value with the syntax, and therefore this is like a named function here. So this would have worked in the past too. It is a way, or a different way, of defining a function. But we can now also use a new syntax where we remove the function keyword, and instead we add an arrow between the argument list and the curly braces. And this arrow is simply an equal sign and a greater than sign. This also creates a function. It's a bit shorter since we saved the function keyword, and it runs in the same way as this function ran before. Now, why would we use this syntax except for the reason that it's a bit shorter? Well, that is already a nice reason, but also there's one key difference regarding the this keyword which JavaScript knows. And attached you find a link to another video and article I created where I dive into the this keyword and how arrow functions help us with it. The attached article and video actually uses the browser, but it's the same for Node.js. So this will be helpful too. You have to know what JavaScript objects are for that, but again, that is some core knowledge I require you to have for this course. In this course, I will pretty much only use arrow functions. So this syntax for defining a function should be something you understand for this course. That this is the name of the function, and then here we have the arguments, and then we have the function body. Now, a little side note. There is also a shorter syntax of writing this, or a couple of shorter syntaxes. Let's say I have another function, which I'll name add, and there I get two arguments, a and b, and I just return the sum of them, so the addition. Then you could write return a plus b, of course, and that allows us to run console log add with 1 plus 2, and if I now run node play.js, we see 3 here as a result. If you only have an arrow function with one statement, which happens to be the return statement, or which you are fine returning, well then, you can omit the curly braces, you can omit the return statement, and you have to omit it, and you just use the function like that. This simply is the same syntax as before with the curly braces and with return, and this function will now always return the result of this statement here. So now if I execute this again, we still see 3. Now if I would adjust this function to, let's say, always add 1, then I have just a as an argument, let's say, and I return a plus 1. Now I could call this by console logging add 1 to, let's say, 1 here. So the result should be 2. And I can, of course, execute this, and indeed I see 2 here. Now, in such a case, you already saw my auto formatting removed the parentheses I had there previously. Because if you only have one argument, and that's the case really for that case only, if you have one argument only, then you can just have the argument name here without parentheses. And it will work just as it will work with parentheses. So both works here. But you typically use the syntax without the parentheses. And again, my IDE auto formatting removed them for me. If you have an arrow function with no arguments at random, then you have to specify an empty pair of parentheses though. You can't have just a white space. You have to have that empty pair, and then you can have your code there, which obviously uses no arguments because that's exactly what I want to show here. So here I could have at random called like this without any data passed in, and now we see 3 here from that result. So these are arrow functions and their different syntaxes, and you will see them throughout the course, and you should recognize that syntax and understand how they work. Again, for a reason why to use them, check out the attached article plus video.